Ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to take a moment to greet my fear, my self-doubt, my vulnerabilities, who casually escort me to all important events I go to. Yet today, I feel very compelled to take a moment and give them the attention that they deserve as the stars of today's speech. Of course, I didn't invite them, by the way. I never do. If it was for me, I'd rather speak about private equity, and I'd rather speak about anything but vulnerabilities. Those vulnerabilities grow dear, yet we all live to protect this picture-perfect, handmade portrait that we've established on our Instagram accounts, and we're not willing to let anyone disturb it. However, today I'm putting it out there just in case someone was listening and thought, oh, ministers don't have fear. Well, they do, and it could knock them to their knees. But the fact that they do doesn't mean that they submit to them. On February 10th, 2016, I was appointed to lead the Ministry of State for Youth Affairs in the United Arab Emirates. And my job was to create the blueprint of an optimal ecosystem that cultivates the largest growing demographic in the UAE, young people, to reach their full potential. I was deeply honored, thrilled, enthusiastic to serve, but also I was overwhelmed. As the calendar kept filling up with engagements, meetings, travels, speeches, forums, fear, self-doubt, and insecurity creeped in. And soon enough, it led me to start questioning what people thought of me, but also questioning myself. A lot of people thought, what is this young girl going to do? What does she know about developing young people's well-rounded capabilities, aspirations to reach their full potential, their best-suited careers, their healthiest minds, bodies, and spirits, their top values as citizens, their true purpose as human beings? The imaginary voice in my head kept talking. And as the days and weeks passed, fear took over me and convinced me, you know what, this might not be for me. I felt lost and I couldn't decide what to do next. And I was filled with void because in fear, we empty ourselves. And it's an effort to silence our critique somehow. We stand still and we freeze. Shortly after, I found myself typing into Google, what is my purpose? What should I do in life? What's my calling? And many of us read the experiences of others to help us find our own place in the universe. On the surface, typing those words may seem trivial, but by pressing enter in that exact moment, it hit me. I was looking for myself, my purpose, on the internet. And had I continued this trajectory, I would still be scrolling down today, 6 years on, dismissing all the answers that exist within. And this is where I decided to look next. And it wasn't an easy exercise. It didn't happen overnight. Sorry, Hollywood. I had to go through layers and layers of fear, self-doubt, and core memories to find the one that would serve me. And I say the one that would serve me, not the one that was true, because you see, self-worth is not a matter of true and false. There isn't a scientific method to validate someone's self-worth. It's given. We're born with it. It's granted. It's not earned. Let me prove that to you maybe with a metaphor. Have you ever met an infant who questions their self-worth? Just like a gymnast. They start with 10 points, and then they start receiving deductions for each mistake. In some way, so do human beings. We begin life when we're born with a natural, complete sense of worth. And as we grow, we begin to serve as our own judges, deducting points when we misunderstand the nature of living, learning, and often we forget that we are human beings in training, and that having a tumble is part of life. It's not an unforgivable sin. We are works in progress. We're releasing, we're learning, and we're expanding. So instead of scrolling down endlessly through other people's answers and through Google, I started scrolling down my core memories, the ones that made me who I am today. And I remembered how when I was growing up, so many of my classmates were smarter, faster, they jumped higher. They've always had something that I felt maybe I didn't have. I couldn't control any of that. Abilities are hard to control, but effort isn't hard to control. And what I controlled was how I worked, how hard I worked. And the difference in abilities fueled me. I developed a discipline to outwork my classmates relentlessly. And this is something I learned from my father. And I made a promise to myself when I was young to continue to embody that. Whenever I committed myself to an activity or task, and I was about to put my fears down or put my pen down and take a break, my father would say, Shamma, just one more. You see, he was that kind of person who always takes the extra mile, who always makes sure he has given his best. And he made sure we see him model it every single day. And we see him say it and repeat it every single day. He would continue to say it until I became more confident and my fears began to wither. And I grew into the task at hand and I totally nailed it. Every achievement I scored started with one more step, continued into one more minute, one more repetition, one more page, and one more practice test. And he kept saying, the difference between average and outstanding, Shamma, is often just one more. And the difference between ordinary and extraordinary is the extra mile you traveled, the extra step you took, the extra hour you put in, the extra blood, sweat, and tear you pour in. One more kept me going because I wasn't ready to quit. My strategy was anytime I felt fear, I would think about learning, challenging, and confronting the obstacles with one more. I would think of one more step as a positive, constructive force, not as a big drag, and try it out. Fear wasn't completely gone, not until now, but it wasn't my enemy anymore. I befriended fear. Just like an angry friend, I let him or her vent out, and I understood he or she has good intentions protecting me. So thank you, fear. I didn't resist it, I embraced fear. Instead of carrying it as an upset stomach, I now enjoy it as delicate butterflies flying around me. And it made all the difference. It was like I was listening to a hard rock song on the radio. And I changed the frequency by 0.1 when I did one more, and suddenly it became Beethoven. Fear is excitement missing a breath, and I changed the frequency by one more step to cultivate courage in that step. And we often think fear is lack of courage. However, if you think about this for a moment, we feel fear. Why? Because we're trying, because we're leaving a familiar turf, because we had courage to grow, because we had courage to take one more step. And we all have fear in common, from kings to kids to soldiers to stay-at-home moms. Pushing through fear can be a vital antidote to low self-esteem. And my experience with one more step helped build the way I face fear. I learned, mirror, mirror on the wall, was asking the wrong questions. It's not about who's the smartest or the best, fill in the blank of them all. But the right question, in my perspective and my experience, was, mirror, mirror, am I the person I want to see every single morning? Do my actions reflect my values? Am I a better person today than I saw in myself yesterday? Did I cultivate courage despite fear? Did I do one more repetition? How can I make myself proud? And how can I get my discipline and willpower on to face that fear and embrace it? Of course, this isn't a recipe that fits all. You've got to refer to your own self-manual to figure out what works. But whenever you do, make sure you don't let fear and self-doubt take the driver's seat. Sometimes the secret of life comes down to bold, creative moves in the mind and in the world, and maybe a truly fearsome life where fear is embraced as a fuel. It doesn't take a lot of accumulated wisdom. It might be simply reflected in something so simple my father used to say. We have a shrewd strategic plan, Shamma. The plan is one more. It's called doing things. It's really easy to get wrapped up in a pretty knot of ideas and fancy plans. Sometimes it makes a lot of sense to cut through all that and just get to work. How about we all let go of fears and doubt and worries and lean into Dad's plan, known as doing things, a little more today. Here's to being fearsome and giving our gifts as women to our families and to the world, my dear sisters. Happy International Women's Day.